Hello, welcome to Until My Batteries Expire. Thank you for finding this video. If this is your first time to the channel, I mainly post videos of the various events I have physically attended, mainly cosplay and pro wrestling events. Sometimes I post commentary. This is one of those commentary pieces. I have been meaning to produce more videos covering the Philippine pro wrestling scene. It is a flourishing industry. The current version has been running since 2014. Pro wrestling in the Philippines has had many ups and downs, but it has survived and thrived. As of today, Philippine Pro Wrestling is in its off season. The three companies currently active are each preparing for bigger and better things in 2024. This is light years ahead of the rebuild Philippine wrestling faced after the pandemic, which forced all wrestling companies to go on hiatus. They only resumed putting together wrestling shows when physical events were allowed again starting fourth quarter 2021. When I say physical events, I mean conventions, trade shows, exhibitions, concerts, and sporting events. All these were allowed to have performers, exhibitors, ticket holders all in one physical location again. When wrestling resumed in this country at the end of 2021, the industry essentially went through a reboot. Whatever storylines were planned for 2020 were long since scrapped, and in some cases, the companies went through a bit of staff turnover. The Manila Wrestling Federation grew the most since local wrestling had its 2021 restart. MWF closed out 2023 with Noche Buena, the final live wrestling event of 2023. Noche Buena was arguably MWF's biggest show ever, highlighted by several milestones for the company and its performers. MWF's roster had grown to be the biggest the company's ever seen by the time Noche Buena happened. This includes having enough female wrestlers for MWF to book a showcase match, focusing on them. Meanwhile, Noche Buena's main event was a 4 versus 4 tag team elimination match for the MWF Championship. 8 wrestlers were in the main event, and MWF still had enough performers on the roster to fill out a 9-match card for Noche Buena, which included one dark match. 5 wrestlers from abroad were announced for Noche Buena. Unless I am mistaken, this is the most number of foreign talent booked for one MWF show. Previously, the most was 4 foreign wrestlers, which happened at MWF's final show in 2019. We will go a bit in depth on the overseas wrestlers later in this video. When Noche Buena ended, MWF had its first ever 2-time champion in Jake De Leon. This also marks the first time any wrestler has held a Philippine promotion's top championship twice. Jake De Leon took over from the previous champ, Fabio Makisig, who was an outstanding champion in his almost 1-year reign. Granted, Makisig's reign as MWF champion was not the longest. That distinction belongs to Ho Ho Lun. But the bulk of Ho Ho Lun's title reign happened from 2020 to 2022. Fabio's reign, meanwhile, was much more active, with multiple title defenses against quality opponents, several of whom have a strong case for becoming MWF champion. Noche Buena in the Philippines is a time when people get together with their loved ones to celebrate Christmas. For a wrestling event named Noche Buena, one of the main tropes featured was relationships disintegrating. Hell, 2 of the matches booked for Noche Buena happened because the people involved had such a bad falling out, they had to settle it in the ring. This is what happened for the matches of Jomar versus Aaron Liwanag and Isaiah Valencia versus CJ Serafin. Even Noche Buena's main event witnessed relationships going sour, which affected both teams competing in that match. That being said, while MWF Noche Buena had a spotlight on friendships and alliances falling apart, the show also highlighted bonds being strengthened. Aaron Liwanag became a fleshed out character, developing a strong friendship with the Super Friends El Catiponero and Super P. While this unusual friendship led to the breaking down of Aaron's ties with his faction's leader, Jomar, it also led to Aaron growing as a character. He eventually gained the trust of his faction's founder, Moises, who admittedly was also having his own falling out with Jomar. MWF's comeback from the pandemic included building their women's division, something the Federation had struggled with throughout its history. In fact, all of MWF's homegrown female wrestlers pre pandemic had all left the promotion by the time the company returned from its pandemic hiatus. But the Federation was able to turn things around from that situation into presenting MWF's first ever women's fatal four way as the co main event for Noche Buena 2023. Super P won that match, but regardless of the outcome, this match was history making for MWF and Philippine wrestling. MWF were not the first Philippine promotion to have a women's fatal four way. That distinction belongs to Philippine Wrestling Revolution, which did it in 2019. But MWF kept at it in terms of developing female wrestlers, right? When the other promotions were either recovering from the pandemic or unable to recover at all. By the end of MWF's first ever women's fatal four way, the contenders shared a group hug with Crystal, the Queen of Philippine Wrestling. Crystal herself did not compete in the match but served as ring announcer, a callback to her original role when she started her own wrestling journey. Together, these women shared a group hug. Regardless of what happens after the match, after Noche Buena, this moment was theirs. They all labored and sacrificed to build this together. Crystal, who led the way as the first female wrestler in the Philippines. And then she in turn trained the others who competed in this match. Together, they paved the way for other women who may have their own dreams of becoming pro wrestlers. The hope is that this nurturing of a women's division will continue to bear fruit both for MWF and for the Philippine wrestling industry as a whole. The bonds strengthened at MWF Noche Buena 2023 also included the bond between wrestler and fans. Welcome back chants broke out when Jorel Liwanag returned to MWF. Hell, she probably received the biggest reaction that day. Jorel had left the promotion in mid 2019, already established as one of the Federation's top talents. 2019 was a weird time for MWF. They just had trouble retaining talent during this period. Those who left the company at this point in time, they didn't just jump ship to any rival promotion. They straight up retired from wrestling. But Jorel had returned, and the fans welcomed her back, eager to see what terror she will unleash on the rest of the roster. Now, to be fair, MWF have fixed their inability to retain talent once they rebooted after their pandemic hiatus. The Federation added multiple competitors to their roster over these past 2 years, including several who officially became full-fledged roster members in 2023. One of those 2023 rookies, Joey Rosas is his name. He even won a championship at Noche Buena in probably the MWF's upset match of the year. And the Federation continues to have prospects in their pipeline. Noche Buena 2023's dark match was a bout between their two latest t-shirt trainees, both of whom are big guys who could possibly make the jump to full-time competitors for the MWF in 2024. Hell, one of them is already a member of Ang Bahay ng Liwanag, following the career path of Aaron Liwanag, who himself was recruited to Ang Bahay ng Liwanag while he was still known as Blue Shirt back in 2022. Noche Buena 2023 continued where Noche Buena 2022 left off, in that both events featured championships from outside the Philippines. In 2022, it was the Setup Thailand 24/7 and the Malaysia Pro Wrestling WrestleCon Championships. The 2023 edition of Noche Buena saw the debut of the Hong Kong Philippines Alliance Cup, won by the rookie Joey Rosas, as mentioned earlier. There was also a title match for the World Underground Wrestling Tag Team Championships, which were won by Ken Cypher and St. John Martin. Now, the Manila Wrestling Federation has grown enough these past 2 years that they can reasonably add at least one new homegrown championship. And they might just do that. But there is a lot of value in having an overseas championship defended on local shows, especially if the champion is a local talent, a homeboy, right? Now, MWF's comeback year in 2022 was enhanced by having the Setup Thailand 24/7 and Malaysia Pro Wrestling WrestleCon Championships available for title defenses. And I'm sure MWF will reap similar benefits in 2024 with title matches for the Hong Kong Philippines Alliance Cup and the World Underground Wrestling Tag titles, so long as the Filipino wrestlers can keep these championships in the country. Because as the owners of these championships are overseas promotions, if they want them back, MWF will have to give them back. As if we're breaking kayfabe for a bit here. For the World Underground Wrestling Tag titles, I hope the current champs, Ken Cypher and St. John Martin, I hope they stay as the tag champs for a very, very long time. Ken Cypher unexpectedly lost his mother less than a week before Noche Buena. He chose to compete at the event as his way of coping with his grief. And if that wasn't enough, half of the defending tag champions from Japan missed their flight. So MWF had to scramble for a replacement, enlisting World Underground Philippines' Zera to be the substitute partner for Kikujiro Uezawa. To my understanding, World Underground Wrestling will recognize Zera as being a tag champion due to stepping in for the absent Sanchu Chubakichi. Now, Chubakichi being unable to compete at Noche Buena meant what would have been 5 overseas wrestlers booked for Noche Buena became 4 guys instead. Ho Ho Lun was one of those 4 who competed. He is the second man to become MWF champion, and he is the longest reigning champion. Though, admittedly, much of that reign was due to the pandemic, which made travel between Hong Kong and the Philippines difficult. Travelers between the two territories had to be quarantined 7 to 14 days, depending on the severity of the outbreak at that location at that point in time, at certain points in time. In the end, Ho Ho Lun agreed to vacate the championship in exchange for a future title shot. Now, Ho Ho Lun wound up losing to Rex Lawin in a number 1 contenders match at Noche Buena. Personally, I thought it was an odd booking decision. I thought Ho Ho Lun would have been great as a looming threat, a boogeyman who could challenge the MWF champion whenever he wanted. Right? He just send a pre-recorded video or something, and just say, "Hey, I'm coming." Right? I'm coming for your gold. But that didn't happen. Instead, Rex Lawin defeated Ho Ho Lun at Noche Buena, and that meant 2 things. One, this ties up the loose end of a foreigner, someone not contracted, not part of the MWF roster, being able to challenge for that title. That loose end is now taken care of. And the second outcome is that Rex Lawin, a long-time competitor in local wrestling, he now has the opportunity to win his first ever title if he can play his cards right. So, there you have it. MWF Noche Buena 2023. It was a very good show which has set the tone for the Federation for 2024. Hopefully they can maintain their momentum. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. If you like this video, please do consider clicking the like button and subscribing to this channel. Hope you have a good day.